Why the UK police are failing the public and why it's only going to get worse as time goes on. So my name is Darkmoore. I was a police officer in the UK for just under 10 years, and in this video what we're going to do is we're going to go over three very important reasons as to why the police force is failing, why members of the public feel that they aren't being looked after, and why so many officers are leaving. Just a quick interjection, if you're watching this on my main channel, I do have a new channel called Shift Proof Emergency Services Support, where I make dedicated videos relating to emergency service workers and shift workers. And what we do in that video is I'll create fitness content, I'll create content surrounding job specific issues, job specific roles, things to do with burnout, morale and everything else. And if you find that you are struggling in your career in the emergency services and need some support, you're not really getting it, you can join my community by clicking the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen right now. Leadership, in particular when it comes to inspector or above, definitely when it comes to, say, chief inspector or above. Now, when it comes to leadership in the police, there are several reasons why we are definitely promoting the wrong people and why, because of the leadership, the service is absolutely crumbling. One of my biggest frustrations is if we use the analogy of a football team, then the manager is to blame if the team starts to crumble. If a business starts to go under, we blame the CEO, we blame the senior management team for making the wrong decisions. And yet for some reason when the police force is failing, it's the individual officer on the street who seems to get all the back flak, because the organisation, the people who run the police, who make the big decisions about where the tax money goes, about where the resources go, they are essentially faceless. We very rarely see them. Certainly very rarely get to hold them to account. So the officers on the street are the ones who tend to get all the shit and all the flack. So when it comes to leadership, we are promoting the wrong people. And we promote people in the police based off not how good of a job they do in relation to the service to the public, in relation to the officers on the ground. We promote them based off statistics, and we promote them based off how well they make the organisation look. So if you have a superintendent, there he is there, if you have a superintendent with his nice smiley face, and then they make the police force look good through stats and charts, that equals they then get promoted. Are you with me so far? So what we tend to find is that the organisation brings in initiatives. They have something which they want to improve on. A big thing for this when I was in the police was definitely violence against women and girls, or as some of them are now saying, male violence against women and girls, specifically male violence against women and girls. And of course we want to reduce violence against women and girls. So the senior leadership saw this as a great initiative, saw this as a great way to further their political career, to further their police career. Because what they then started doing was essentially they started taking the autonomy away from officers. So it would mean that officers who have all the training in safeguarding, they have all the training in being able to identify risk, be able to use a national decision-making model, basically their full police training. What would happen was they would then be told, if you attend a certain kind of incident, you have to use what's called positive action. Now, positive action can mean a multitude of different things, but it was very quickly determined that positive action meant an arrest. In order to arrest somebody, you have to have something called a necessity. You have to have a specific reason as to why that person has to be arrested. It isn't actually enough that they just committed a crime or you suspect them of committing a crime. There has to be a specific reason. And there's a few of them, but one of the main ones are to prevent further injury to somebody. So you arrest somebody to stop them hurting that person again or to hurt someone else. To prevent them going missing, so to prevent escape, meaning that you have to be arrested there and then because we don't want them to disappear. To prevent damage to property, there's a few reasons to protect vulnerable people, etc. So what I'm saying is there has to be a reason why someone gets arrested. One of the most commonly abused ones is something called a prompt and effective investigation, meaning that we have to investigate this incident right now, and normally why that is done is via a police interview or to collect evidence or to prevent evidence going missing. Generally what was happening with domestic incidents is that the police were being told, even on their way there to an incident, the police were getting the radio a radio message from their senior leader, from their inspector or above, basically saying, when you attend this incident, you will do this. This is what is going to happen. So in order to force police officers into basically doing what the organisation wanted them to do in order to further someone's career, was what was happening is they were saying, you have to arrest, you must arrest at this incident, you must take positive action, you must do this. And they would kind of make up the necessity as they went along. They were kind of being told that if you don't go to this incident and arrest, then you have to justify it. But if you do arrest, no questions will be asked. It was like the necessity to arrest was flipped on its head, in that if you decided not to arrest, then you would have to justify that. But if you did arrest, then you wouldn't have to justify it. And to me, that is completely wrong. Because what this does is it makes a false economy for the service to say that we are arresting more people related to domestic violence, for example, or arresting more people for X, Y, and Z. And we're completely ignoring maybe how many people actually get charged. What it basically means is the people who are being promoted are not doing a very good job at actually looking after the police force and actually looking after the officers and looking after the members of the public. It means that in order for somebody else to be promoted, the police have to act really unlawfully because they're trying to force a certain statistic through the door. So officers are now being pressured to arrest, they are being pressured to do not necessarily what they may feel is the right thing to do, and we'll get on to another reason why the police force is in absolute utter disrepair very, very soon. So in practicality terms, what does this mean? Well, for the public, it means that the police are seen as a punitive force. So somebody may call the police for help and they come and the next thing you know, they're arresting their partner when all you've had is an argument. You haven't actually, there's been no assault. You're being told that there's an assault happened, but there's been no assault because of the legal definition of assault is being essentially abused and manipulated. The people who have called the police for help may be then alienated from their family because they are kept on bail for too long, of which people have actually ended their lives. Quite a few people I know have dealt with people that have ended their lives due to the stress of being on bail. It means that people are being arrested for little to no reason. It means that police officers are arresting people when they don't feel it's justified, but they're under so much stress and coercion from their senior leadership that is what they are being told to do and being forced to do. Yes, officers say no, but if you are newer in service, you're less likely to say no because one, you might not feel confident enough in your own capabilities of decision making to say no, but also you don't want to piss off your senior leadership if you've spent the last 12 months trying to get into a profession which maybe you've always wanted to do. So there's a multitude of reasons why that is, but the people who suffer ultimately are the public and the officers on the ground, because the officers on the ground are the ones who then get all the shit. They are the ones who then get told, you've destroyed my life, you've not looked after me. It also means that, importantly, it also means that the officers that have to deal with the influx of incidents that frankly aren't going anywhere due to this stat chasing for the benefit of somebody else, somebody else's promotion. It means that those officers are then too busy to actually deal with proper incidents. So if you have 10 incidents and say 7 of them are like an arrest stat, a statistic arrest, it's not a case of that person really needed to come in or that person needed to be arrested. It's a case of, well, the police were called and somebody's coming away in handcuffs because of the pressures put on the officers there and then at the scene. Unfortunately, because of the amount of cases like that coming through, those cases need to be dealt with because they're on a time limit, because someone's on bail. But what's happening is the police will say that this is to support the reduction of violence against women and girls in particular when it comes to DA and domestic violence. But by doing this approach, they're actively harming people more because the cases that really do need support and do need the police attention, these serious cases of abuse, aren't then being progressed and aren't being looked into. So not only are the police seen now as a punitive force, as stat hungry, and as people that don't care because they're just sticking people in handcuffs regardless, it also means that they're actively making it worse for potential victims of domestic abuse who do call the police after so many times of being abused. I've dealt with cases, I've heard of cases where the police have actually been used as a proxy, as a third-party proxy of abuse by a perpetrator. So person A leaves the relationship, finally flees, and then the abuser contacts the police, makes a malicious allegation, and then the police come and arrest the victim. So what's happening is, because of this mindset that the police now have, the senior leadership team have, of if there's an allegation, regardless of any investigation, it would seem, somebody's being arrested because we want to get this stat up, we want to get more ticks in this box, then abusers are actually then using the police to enact their abuse. So by this blanket stat chasing, this quota, what officers are now having to fill in, of so many arrests every month, so many stop searches, so many traffic stops, etc. I actually had an officer turn around to me recently and said the reason why I left was I got sick of doing illegal stop searches, because I'm under so much pressure to get the numbers in, to get the statistics in. It was completely wrong and just not justified at all. So they left. So again, like I said, this will go on to the next thing. So, but by the end of it, by the end of all this, somebody gets a pip on the shoulder, a crown on the shoulder, and we then have a more, in my opinion, quite corrupt officer who is pushing all this down for their own promotion and benefit higher up in the organisation. We don't promote people, or it certainly seems like we don't promote the right people based off their merit and based off what they do for the public and how good they are actually as a leader. Because that's what we do. We're promoting leaders. It's senior leadership team, senior management team. We don't have leaders. We don't have those people in the police, very rarely anyway, those senior leaders who we look at and we go, okay, this officer here has told me to do something, this senior leadership officer, I highly respect them because I know through working with them that they are excellent at what they do and I would follow them into battle. That's not a case that's just not happening. Instead, what we have is that person there was promoted based off how well they made the organisation look. So quite simply, leadership, they care about the organisation. They make the organisation look happy. Nice tick there. And the public make them very unhappy. So if you make the organisation look good, you get promoted, regardless of the impact that then has on the service of the public, because we can just say, you know, the statistics go up. That's what happens. The statistics go up. And as long as it goes up and it makes these people look okay, don't fucking matter about me and you, mate. Don't matter about members of the public. Don't matter about service to the public. Doesn't matter about officer morale. Don't matter. And that's one of the reasons why the police service, the police force is irrevocably fucked, is because of the senior leaderships. Wrong people in very high positions of power making decisions which destroy public confidence, quite illegal a lot of the time, and make the force look better. It's all about money. It's all about money, and it's all about stats and data. And I talk about it a lot in this called Secret Diver Police Officer, The Job's Fucked, which you can get in the link in the description below. Or scan the QR code on screen right now. The next one, what I have, I'm going to change the colour of the pen. Actually, I'm going to change this to blue. The next problem with our police force, from what the officers are telling me and from what I've seen myself, a big one this, is, you'll like this one. Again, sorry, I'm left-handed. I should probably put it this side now I think about it. Recruitment. And not just recruitment in general, but specific things to do recruitment, such as the degree programme, complete waste of time, officer turnover, And then, a personal favourite of mine, what I like to talk about, fitness test. I'm going to go through all these now. It'd be so much easier if I was right-handed, wouldn't it? It'd be so much easier if I was right-handed. Because I could actually sit there and start doing this. Okay. Now, why is all this important? And it's important because if we absolutely cannot get this right, then we are fucked before we even begin. It's imperative that we make sure that we are hiring the right people for the right reasons, and people are joining for the right reasons. And through the training and the taking care and looking after those officers, they're able to give the best, absolute best and most incredible service to the public, to me and you, and also to ensure that the officers who are out there every single day doing an impossible job are looked after properly. So let's start with the degree programme. Why the hell do you need a degree to be a police officer? Short answer is you don't. This attracts the wrong kind of person into the police, in my opinion. I always hear such things as, why don't we hire more servicemen? Why don't we hire more ex-army into the police? And I'm like, yeah, why don't we? And I think there's quite a simple reason for that, in that if you have been in the army for the last 10 years, maybe you're in your mid-20s, potentially early 30s, you potentially got a family and everything else by this point. You then come out and then you want to join the police. You think, okay, police is a ranked organisation, structured organisation. I want to join the police. I'm fit. I'm used to handling people. I'm good at dealing with conflict. I'll do that. You're then told that you have to complete a degree, and it will take you 3 years. And for so many weeks of the year, etc., you're going to be at university. Now, me personally, I was never great academically. Obviously, I can write and I can write stories and be creative, but I was never great academically. So if I had joined the police, I joined via the old process where it's just interview, backgrounds, checks, everything else, fitness test, assessment centre, and all the rest of it. Academically, I'm not the best. So if you'd have told me that I had to do a degree to enter in the police, I probably would have never bothered, to be honest. I probably just wouldn't have done it. And I joined in my mid-20s. Now imagine if I was like, as I am now, early 30s, and I'd been in the police and I'd been in the army or some other profession like that for the past God knows how long. You're very likely to do it. It's a blocker. So what kind of demographic does it attract? And I've worked with quite a few people who do the degree programme, quite a few younger people, and they were very, very good. But I've also worked with some fucking terrible ones. And I also know a lot of people who message me and tell me that the quality of the officers that are coming in from the degree programme aren't very good. They have had little experience with conflict. They've had little experience with any kind of, rank organisation, any kind of authority, any kind of following orders. And even just like the mindset of a lot of them is quite young. I don't know what you was like at 18, 19. I was a bit of a fucking idiot when I was like 18, 19. So God help me if I'd have given a uniform and, handcuffs, I wouldn't have had a clue what I was doing. Absolutely no chance. Certainly dealing with some of the incidents that I have since dealt with when I did join, I had a lot more life experience then, a lot more maturity, a lot more with my head screwed on. Joining at 18, 19, unless... It certainly is a degree entry. I don't think it's a good thing either. But there's also another demographic of people that it attracts. And one of those is people who, frankly, want a free degree. Because you join the police, okay, I was a police officer for 3 years. That looks really good on the CV. I've learned investigations. I've learned how to do this. I've done conflict management and everything else. And it looks good. Plus, on top of that, I've also got a free degree. So I've got other friends who've gone to university and got a degree, but they've had to spend £40,000, £50,000. I managed to join the police, get my degree for free, work paid for 3 years, and then left. But then there's also the additional strain on those officers who have to come in on the degree programme, in that not only do they have to work shifts, deal with incidents and everything else what the policing world has to offer, the career of policing has to offer, you also have to then do a degree on top. So not only are you dealing with everything what you got to deal with, but you then have to go away and study for a degree, and the additional stress that causes. Studying for a degree is hard anyway. Never mind then doing it on top of shift work as well. Then you have the impact what that has on the rest of your team too. So say if there's a team of 10 officers on a block, if 3 of those officers are in the degree program, there's potentially going to be months of the year where there's actually only 7 officers operational because the other 3 have gone away to do their uni work. That means that not only when it comes to the additional calls, there's not enough staff to deal with those calls, which they have to then go and attend, but it means that the officers' workload as well, so cases they're carrying, then have to be taken up by somebody else. So it creates additional strain on everyone else too. So degree program, I personally cannot see any benefit of it. Even the curriculum, what you are taught, you learn to be a bobby, you learn to be a cop out on the street and dealing with people and learning from people more experienced than you. You do not learn being a police officer in a classroom. It just doesn't work. Then we look at turnover. So take the degree program aside, we then have turnover. Now the Home Office and the government will tell you that, oh, we're getting more police officers through and everything else, but it's actually a load of shit. It's not true. There's estimates that up to 10,000 police officers a year are going to be leaving soon, and there's only about 140,000, I think, warranted officers in the entire country. So within about just over a decade, we won't have any police left. They are struggling more and more to recruit people into the service, so the quality of the officers are coming down, are getting less and less. I've heard some horror stories of officers who have ran away from conflict, officers who have failed their fitness test and they've still been allowed to go through, officers who have failed background checks but they've actually gotten in by that point, so it's quite difficult to get rid of them. Lots of issues with the quality of the officers coming through, because it makes sense, doesn't it? If you are struggling to keep people at the back end, then you're going to relax and make it easy for people to come through at the front end. But that's dangerous, because as a police officer, you have a lot of authority and a lot of power, and you can enter people's homes. You are often alone with potentially vulnerable people, speaking to them. So we need to make sure that we're getting the right people in. So I think that's a very serious risk. There's also the turnover in the sense of officers who maybe they are getting reprimanded or they're being sacked for things which, frankly, aren't particularly bad. Somebody makes a complaint. There's a big culture in the police of, in one sense, you get told if you're getting a complaint, then you're doing your job right, because you're being robust and you're telling people no, you can't do that, and you might upset some people through that, but it shows that you're being robust in what you're doing. But then it seems like now there's a terrified part of the police where it goes, well, we can't get a complaint. If we get a complaint, we have to bend over backwards because God forbid someone complains about us. So the two things can't exist at the same time. Not only that, the thing with turnover as well is there's something which someone has told me recently called the healthy churn. And what that means is within a police officer may join and they leave within about 3 to 4 years of joining because of how unhappy they are in the role. The pay is terrible. The pay has dropped down by about 21% since, I believe, 2010. So police officers now have to do more for less. But the senior leadership are actually quite happy that people come for a little bit and then leave. Like, they don't want people staying now for 30 years, for 20, 30 years, because it's expensive. Because after, I think, about 6 to 7 years, a police officer then got some full pay. And then the longer they're in their career, the more of the pension contributions, etc., they'll accrue, which means that when they do retire, pensions, the force has to keep paying their pension. So why would, and by 2 to 3 years in, by 3 to 4 years in, sorry, the officer has paid off their training, essentially, the investment of the training. They've done 3 to 4 years and then they leave. It means that they're not on the top salary, so it saves the force money, and they probably haven't put that much into the pension contribution, so again, it saves the force money. So we've constantly got new people coming in who potentially aren't very good because of the reduction in criteria of the allowing of those people in order to backfill the people that are leaving after 3 or 4 years. It means that police officers are getting less and less experience, which means that when you have an incident when you have an incident and you call the police for support, chances are you're getting quite a new officer attending to look after you, which means you're not getting experience. Plus, going back to what I said about leadership, in that it's all about statistics and box ticking in order to make the force look better, and people with less experience aren't happy to say, actually, I don't want to do that, so they don't push back. So they're more likely to, I was kind of like, really like mindless drones and just go and deal with, do whatever their senior leadership tells them, without any real thinking or autonomy over their decisions. So that causes a huge problem too. And plus, just morale in the police in general has never been lower. Pay, working conditions, support, etc. So the turnover in the police is actually quite high. And like I said, why, if it saves the force money and makes the force, you know, more profitable, not profitable, but it saves the force money, would they want to keep officers happy? Again, it's just seeing officers as numbers rather than people who join to do a good job, people who want to look after members of the public. So again, senior leadership team, another issue there. And then, like I said, there's a fitness test. Now, I did a video on my new channel, Shift Proof, basically highlighting how fucking easy the police fitness test in the UK is, because I did 4 fitness tests back to back. I did the NYPD test, I did the Australian Federal Police test, I did the New Zealand Police test, and then I also did the SWAT team at the end. I did them back to back, and yes, I was incredibly tired, but that was to highlight that the police force in the UK, their fitness test is stupidly easy. Now, a lot of forces have kept it as 5.4 in the bleep test, and depending on the role, sometimes you may have to go higher than that, 6.5, 9, etc. But it's just the running. That's all it is. There's no grip test, there's no strength test, there's no obstacle courses, there's no kind of, it's not really job applicable. Whereas the other forces around the world do have a more applicable job role related fitness test. But it was also more importantly, I think, to highlight that, and we'll get on to the next big reason why the police force is failing in just a second, but it was also to highlight that by other places in the world having a more robust fitness test, that encourages officers to maintain their fitness. If you have a really low level of fitness standard, it means that officers don't really have to prepare for it. They can just go and do it. And then, you know, maybe they're a bit tired because they've gotten so unfit throughout the year until it comes to their annual refresher. So we all know that fitness and exercise and taking care of your body really also helps your mental health. I personally believe that there should be a change in that officers should be allowed to have time in work to exercise. They should get protected fitness time. I think the fire service have it, but the police force don't, for whatever reason. So if it was up to me, what I'd say is for an hour during your entire set of shifts, not every day, but 1 hour set, you have to go to the gym. Even if you just walk on the treadmill for an hour, you have to do an hour's paid fitness as part of your role. That way, officers will be fitter, they will be stronger, they'll probably have better mental health because they have that healthy outlet once a week. And it also means that officers will probably get to know each other a bit better, and that kind of block camaraderie will be better too. And building that relationship. And then through that, it means that officers can protect themselves better. It means that officers can, you know, protect the public better. And it means that officers are more able to deal with conflict better, which can only be a good thing. And it will make officers be more confident too. So an absolute must when it comes to the UK police is the fitness test must be harder. It must be harder because that would then encourage officers to actually take care of themselves better, which will then improve officers' mental health, etc., like I said. So, recruitment, another bit of an issue there. Now, there's one more. What I wanted to get onto. And this is another big one. In fact, I would say this is the biggest one. This one I'm going to talk about now. This is the one which I would say ties everything together. It ties everything together in relation to leadership, ties everything together in relation to service to the public, to feeling valued, to fitness, to mental health, to everything. And that is quite simply the biggest issue in the police force as it stands right now. Morale. Why the fuck would anybody be a bobby? Have a think about that. Have a think about that question. Why would somebody want to be a police officer now in the UK? When you just get filmed, the leadership don't care about you, the internet, you know, you get filmed, you get trolled online, your face will be plastered absolutely everywhere if you do something wrong. If you make a decision which your senior leadership want you to make and you didn't really agree with it, but someone sat there with a phone and recorded you and then it goes viral, you then, you know, the officer, the senior leadership officer who told you to make that decision is sat behind in an ivory tower somewhere, you know, completely away from all the back flack. You're the one who's getting the shit. You're the one who's getting all the problems. You're the one who's, you know, being told that you're a waste of space and that you're a tyrant and that you don't care about the public and you're a disgrace to your oath and everything else. So why would you bother? The pay's shit. 21% down since 2010. The pay is awful. Pension contributions, you now have to work longer for less. You don't even get as good a pension as you used to. And even though the pay's gone down, the pension contributions are massive. So for example, officers may say that on top salary, they may be on about £45,000, I think it is now, maybe a little bit more. But once the pension's taken out, you know, the pension contribution will be £500–600 a month. So you have to put more in and get less out in the long run. And you have to work longer as well. So it used to be, yeah, okay, the police was a tough job, but after so many years, after you did your 30 years, you then managed to retire with a nice lump sum and a decent pension. But the new pension scheme is anything but that. So a lot of officers now, they're like, well, why do I need to do 30 years? I'm 5 years in, I already hate it. And this is why I've got this community, like I mentioned before, this community of people who are in the emergency services, and it's a support community. We have fitness things on there, we have diet things on there, we have things to do with mental health. I'll put on courses, I'll put on talks, I'll put on seminars, I'll put on videos like this and deep dives into certain topics. But more importantly, it's a support community. It's where people can talk and they can feel protected and feel safe and secure and actually discuss things which are you know, they're upset with. So, and the reason why that is because I'm very, very concerned that in the future, in the very near future, there's going to be no fucking police left. There's going to be no one left because morale is through the floor. Morale is through the floor. And there's a few reasons why morale is through the floor. So firstly, we've already mentioned pay. Pay down 21%. 21%. Fucking shocking. What other force, what other profession would you go into, knowing it's terrible, knowing that you know it's very difficult anyway? Oh, by the way, you earn a fifth less than you would have done 10 years ago, 20 years ago. What year are we in? Long time ago, anyway. Then there's the shift work, so working nights. Shift work, working nights, cancelled days off too. A lot of people don't realise police officers get their days off cancelled. So it's not like a given, like, you know, Monday to Friday, you work Monday to Friday, you get the weekends and the evenings off. Would you carry on working for your boss if they turn around to you and said, by the way, you know, your weekend where you've got like your birthday planned and you've got things out, yeah, we're too busy at work, so you're going to have to come in. You'll get paid for it, or you'll get like your day off somewhere else, just reallocated on like a fucking random Tuesday. Yeah, you'll get that. But tough shit, you can't complain, you have to come in because that's what you signed up for. It's like, right, okay. Yeah, sorry, love, I can't come to that meal with your family because work have told me I have to come in. Cancelled rest days are awful. It just makes fucking people very, very unhappy, especially when it happens a lot as well. So there's cancelled rest days, and plus the issue as well with cancelled rest days is that is the recuperation period. That's the period when you're supposed to be taking care of yourself. It's a period where you're meant to be decompressing, where your mental health, you know, you're looking after your mental health. You're doing physical activities, you go in the gym, you're socialising with friends and family, or you're just recuperating if it's been a bit chaotic for the past bloody week. They then say, no, you can't have that. you needed in work. So, right, okay, obviously there's time and where demand is you know, it's absolutely necessary because there's maybe big events on, there's protests or football games or whatever, you know. But if it happens all the time, the organisation will take care of the organisation and its needs first. You literally have a collar number. You are literally a number when it comes to the service, unfortunately. Training is another one. So training we've covered in the recruitment stage is one thing what officers said. They get taught a lot about, you know, Section 39 of the Who Gives a Fuck Act. Some obscure piece of legislation or some algorithm or some anagram which you're probably very rarely ever going to use, instead of real practicable advice such as, you know, how to write a very, very good statement or how to do a ABE, you know, like video interviewing. I think every officer should be trained in video interviewing. I think a video interview should be the absolute standard, the basic gold standard of interviewing people. Even, you know, how to interview, you don't get regular training on that. You get initial training, and then I think you get a refresher after 2 years, and then it's kind of like, right, okay, go on, you know how to interview now. Like, what about techniques? What about different tips? What about psychology or stuff like that? And not only that, like, you're dealing with, in the police, you deal a lot with, say, domestic violence, such as harassment, stalking, dealing with controlling and coercive behaviour. You have to go on specialist courses for that, and yet you'll probably deal with it several times a week. So the training's lax. Even when it comes to welfare and taking care of yourself, why are we not on training days telling officers, right, go to the gym, or we booked a day for you and your colleagues to go out and go do a fitness class? We did that a couple of times in my old force, and it was great. It was so good. A lot of the time on the training modules, a lot of it's death by PowerPoint. So you just sat there bored and like, right, okay. I feel like I know less now after watching that than what I thought I knew before. So the day-to-day practicable things, what you need to deal with, and you need to know quite a lot about, I think the training is quite lax on that. So then officers feel underprepared. Officers feel that they feel like imposters who don't know what they're doing, which then decreases their morale. It increases the risk of them doing something wrong, or it increases the fear that they're going to fuck up, which then brings down the morale even more because they feel like the organisation isn't going to back them. So training's a massive issue too. Oh, in case, by the way, I have got some notes here, and that's why I keep disappearing, which I'm sure you figured it out about. Lack of support is a huge one. Lack of support. The organisation cares about itself. Like it. I was talking. Lack of support. Support. Fucking underline that bad boy there. See, when I do that, I can't see because I'm left-handed. Lack of support. Maybe I should try and write with my other hand. Maybe that might be better. Lack of support. Should we see what it looks like? Should we see what it looks like with my other hand? Let's have a go. Very unprofessional. Support. See that? Oh, fuck it. Oh, it's neater. Oh no. I'm writing neater with my less dominant hand. Lack of support. Officers aren't being supported. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. They're not being supported by the senior leadership team, not being supported by the organisation, not being supported by management. You'll hear, oh, we put on a welfare day. Oh, well, nice one. Yeah, I'm too busy to go to that. Or they'll put on, you do an online portal thing. But real long-lasting change and real support is quite lax. When officers deal with something quite traumatic, they have something called autism. It could be called a TRIM. It's a trauma incident like debrief, and they can be very, very good. But I feel that's half of it. They force covering their ass, because once you've had that, any kind of long-lasting support after that, it tends to be quite lax and non-existent. Some forces do put officers in for counselling, but it's quite limited. I had to have counselling for a little bit. I had 6 weeks, 6 sessions over 6 weeks of counselling, and it was very, very useful. Now, thankfully, I was quite okay after that. Like, the counselling kind of did its job, so that was great. But I know of officers who have had counselling, and they felt like they needed more, and then they were told to go see GP and like look at it yourself. So it can take like up to 12 months, can't it? Officers who are being penalised if they go off sick, officers who have been put on action plans if potentially they're too stressed. Stress, burnout, huge issues, and I've got videos on the Shift Proof channel in relation to burnout as well, about how people, you can protect yourself from it and deal with it, and that's something we'll talk about quite a lot in the community too. So lack of support, but equally I know like some supervisors do really, really well, and they really try and support their officers, but they're against it too. We need to obviously be considerate of the sergeants who give a shit, and even it's middle management inspectors who give a shit too. The issue is they aren't supported either. And there's definitely like a nepotistic nature to it too. It's who you know. It's the police is run like a business. You have to remember that. The police is run like a business, and it's this impacting the organisation, right, where you're now the problem. What do you mean you're answering back and you're not doing what you're told? Well, you're going to be the problem then. We're going to threaten you with action plans. We're going to threaten you with dismissal. We're going to threaten you with lots of different things because you are seen as a problem. What do you mean you've got PTSD? What do you mean you got, you can't sleep, you got these kind of issues going on? It's bleak. It's bleak, and I fucking hate the thing of what people say. Oh, well, you knew what you signed up for. Yeah, okay. There's one thing going in knowing you're probably going to see something quite nasty. There's another thing maybe holding a deceased child in your arms or seeing someone's brains on the floor. There's a big difference between knowing it's going to happen and actually seeing it. So, and you wouldn't tell someone who's just come back from Afghanistan who's got PTSD, who saw somebody get blown up or someone get seriously injured, or they were in a very high distress environment where they could potentially have been seriously injured. You wouldn't say to them, oh, you knew what you were doing, you knew what you signed up for. So why is it any different to officers who go and get seriously assaulted or attacked or see something cumulative every single day over the space of months, and then you have an absolute fucking mental breakdown? Why is one seen as, we need to talk about soldiers and people that have been to war, and yet officers, paramedics, fire service, Coast Guard, prison officers, the people that deal with that stuff every single day, granted they're not being shot at and blown up, but they still see awful things. So why is one viewed more robustly and looked into more than and not the other one? So and then there's the whole thing of like paperwork, duplication of work. Oh God, I could do another entire video on paperwork and stuff, but it's never ending. It's duplication all the time, and it just takes forever. It's so fucking pain in the ass. But basically, all this means is that morale's going through the floor. More officers are leaving, which means that when you ring up the police because you need the support from the police, there's going to be no one there. There's going to be no one there to help you. If you are a police officer watching this, thank you for everything what you're doing. If you're a paramedic or you're in the shift, shift work, emergency service worker. If you're an international officer too, is this the same case in your force? Is this like a worldwide thing, or is it mainly just indicative to the UK? Do any of these reign true to you too? Let me know in the comments as well on this video. But there you have it, guys. That's 3. I could probably do a longer video and cover more things. Well, let me know. Let me know in the comments. Do you like this video? Do you want to see more sort of stuff like this? Do you like this style, this more deep dive with a whiteboard kind of thing? I'm standing here with my arm on my side like this. Let me know what you thought. But yeah, have a great day. Thank you for everything you do. Take care.